Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Sharon Vornholt, and I'm so happy you're tuning in today. We are going to talk about a really hot topic today, and that is Airbnbs and short-term rentals. And I have a special guest today, Al Williamson. Al is from Sacramento, California, and this is not our first time. This is not our first rodeo, is it, Al?
No, it's not.
So,
I think you were one of the first people to ever notice me. So I think you may have discovered me, Sharon.
well, that's entirely possible. So, Al is a professional engineer. He's been a full-time real estate investor since 1996, and he's the author of several real estate books. And he's now trying to figure out how to maximize his cash flow of a small portfolio so it can generate enough cash to replace a middle-class job. That was a mouthful. Welcome to the show, Al.
Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So it has been a while. And, I've known you to be a multifamily investor. So
Yes.
when I heard that you were doing Airbnbs, I was anxious to talk to you. So why don't we just backtrack a little bit and have you tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your backstory here.
Okay, great. So in 96, I was getting ready to get married, and a fellow at a church picnic pulled me aside, and he encouraged me to look into getting a duplex and living one half of it, and instead of buying a regular little house like we were planning on doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that took me to the library. I went on this big quest on reading everything, and I ended up pushing my new bride into a threeplex, into the smallest apartment in there. And that property, I had lots of complaints for a lot of years until the value of the property tripled on us. And then that led us to an eightplex. And we ended up getting a house after all, but we ended up getting an eightplex. And that eightplex, I started experimenting on it. I called it my laboratory.
Mm-hmm.
I took on this brand of landlord scientist, Sharon, since
Mm-hmm.
then. And I started experimenting on the eightplex, and I was able to find enough income revenue and different ideas to retire myself as an engineer. So
Wow.
with the eightplex, and I tried to do it all publicly and written about it, and I've been off ever since. Especially after I covered the mortgage, I kept going, and that's why short-term rentals help spew even more cash flow out of it, because I really don't want a job and I don't want a lot of moving parts. So
Mm-hmm.
just having just a couple buildings now, and with short-term rentals is all we really need.
Well, I know a couple of people that have gone into short-term rentals, Airbnbs, and I know in our area, it's like a lot of areas, they tried to push through regulations real fast to tax them and stop them. And in my area, that's been put on hold for a while. I don't know if I think it'll circle back around. But we all know that you can make more money on short-term rentals. But what makes a property an Airbnb as opposed to just, say, a vacation home or a different type of rental? Is there something that distinguishes it?
Well, there's some categories. Let's talk about that so we
Mm-hmm.
can unpack this thing. So we got vacation rentals, and those are like 1 week, 2 weeks type of thing, and it could be something for a business trip or for vacationers. And then we have military housing, which is another part of furnished housing, furnished rentals. And then we have corporate housing, and even student housing is part of furnished rental category. And insurance housing, that's where people are displaced. That's this very lucrative part of furnished rentals. Medical housing, 3 types of medical housing. You got people staying to take care of their family members for a long period of time. And you got medical housing with students as well as traveling nurses and professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And you have temp housing. So there's a big, very broad category of this furnished rental category. And these longer ones I'm sharing with you are recession proof, and they fit into your regulations, because those typically people define Airbnbs as something less than 30 days.
Right.
So when you go longer than 30 days, you open up those other 6 categories that I was sharing with you. and you can do just fine. The same. Here's the key. It's nearly the same net income as doing really frequent short-term stays.
Okay, so let's go name those off again real quick, 1 through 6.
Okay, we have military housing.
Military.
So it's recession-proof, long-term, 3, 7 months. And then corporate housing. This is where you rent directly to a business, maybe has a training program, brings people in for training. And student housing, of course, 9 months.
I know that one, yeah.
Yeah. And then insurance housing, where either you got insurance adjuster staying there or you have a displaced family having a loss of use. And then medical housing, you got medical students,
nurses, yeah.
Nurses, and then you have the families of whether loved ones have been there for a long time. And then you have the last one is temp housing, where a lot of in-betweeners, people who have just sold their homes and they're going to waiting to buy for the new ones to come about. That's really, really popular. Or their home's being remodeled and they need a place for their family for a couple months. So
the question that I think about is, I know someone that has what I consider to be a higher end Airbnb. So it's clearly designed it's in a hip, trendy area. It's actually an old house, but it's been remodeled beautifully. And so the different types of things would not necessarily be interchangeable. Being familiar with college students and
right,
you definitely wouldn't want to put them in that.
No.
So sometimes they might be interchangeable, but not always, especially when you get down to the furnished part and the really pretty part.
Yes, you can go from high-end vacation to corporate. Do that,
right,
back and forth, and both those two categories are probably the most vulnerable to a turn down in the economy. So most people, if they come in and they know about the 6 categories, they can pick and choose which one fits their lifestyle and what their objective is. Because you can because really everyone wants the net income, right? No one, that's what they want. So if you can take something that's a Timex and make it and sell it for a Rolex price, then you really got a big cash flow. You got a big net.
So how do you prevent? Now, I know that my friend that has the high-end rental, he doesn't really have a problem with theft. My sister-in-law has had a rental in a resort area for 30 plus years. Okay. And she's only had rare occasions where something walked off from the property. But I would imagine that the lower let's say not the lower, but the different types of rentals, that could be an issue. Somebody could leave with your washer and dryer or something. How do you address that?
Well, if they're flying in on a plane, they're not going to take a washer and dryer.
Right. Well, right. If it's a short-term corporate rental, but if let's say it's a military housing. Military housing.
That's the thing. Military housing is kind of a business traveler, so to speak, because they're traveling for their job and they have a supervisor and that holds them accountable, that you can reach out to and put them in check. So because of that, that's why I love business travelers the most, and I focus on business travelers because you have that lever on them. They're not paying out of their own pocket. They're using an allowance. And they have a high level of accountability. So that's why that is my favorite flavor, corporate travel, business travelers.
Yeah, that's a much more stable thing. I know that we have big companies here that often transfer someone in for 9 months or a year, and like Papa John's or GE or something like that. That's a very lucrative niche for people that don't want to live in an apartment.
Exactly.
There's a lot of the apartment communities around those big companies. I'd say the more upscale communities, they'll cater to those people. But a lot of those same people would prefer to be in a house.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if they have a family and pets and things like that. Absolutely.
So, was there a particular thing that made you get started doing this as opposed to regular apartments, or you just decided to add that to your multifamily investor?
Well, you remember back in 2015, I was writing that book called 40 Ways to Increase the Net Income of Your Rental Property. And Airbnb was one of those 40 ways. And at that time, Airbnb in 2015 came out with that business travel category where they said,
Mhm.
we will promote your place to a business traveler if you don't live there, if you dedicate a space. So when that came about, I'm like, wow, let me try that, because before it was really a bed and breakfast, high service, uh,
Mhm.
carry their luggage type of thing. That was the culture of Airbnb.
Mhm.
Business Traveler came out, and I was all in, and that's when I started testing with one of my units, because I haven't been satisfied with traditional rentals with a net income, before taxes and everything. I
Right.
think it's a wonderful wealth building, equity building strategy. But if you maintain your property, it seems like a painting or a water heater, Sharon, it just
Yeah.
really takes away your profits, and it's really your cash flow. It absorbs all your cash flow. But equity wise is wonderful.
Mhm.
So I wanted more cash flow. That's what I wanted. That's why
Okay.
I started.
Yeah, that is the problem that I see with people here that even have a lot of rentals. The only way they succeed over time is to have a second stream of income,
Yeah.
because their long-term goal is to build wealth, and once they have a whole bunch of paid off properties, then that becomes a whole different ball game. But
Right. Right.
getting to the paid off properties, that's the problem.
That's right. So if you want to compress time, you need to get more cash flow, and then you can retire your notes earlier. Or like me, I wanted to retire when I was 50. I didn't want to. I didn't want to keep working after that. I didn't want to keep waiting until my place was paid off.
Right.
So I wanted to put it into it.
Well, I think people today, what I've seen with investors is, used to be buy and hold investors, or you were a flipper, or if there were like several strategies, and now people are taking those same strategies and they're going, how can I combine these
Yeah.
to have the lifestyle or tweak up what I'm doing, which is what you've done to move over, while you're still obviously building wealth over time. You
Yeah.
made a definite play to go after the cash flow, which I know there's a lot more. Then my friend that did the Airbnb here in Louisville, he got some good advice from companies like that rent those places, and his place was set up to either be a 5 bedroom, 4 bathroom, or a 3-2-2-2. And they said, oh, your money is in, because I said, what have you done? You've got a 5 bedroom Airbnb and we're not on the beach. What have you done?
Yeah.
You're a smart attorney, but what the heck have you done? He said, no, I talked to those people, and you go after a very specific demographic, very high-end corporate.
Hmm.
And they advised him that the rents were like 2-3 times as much if he rented it as a 5 bedroom, even though it had 2 kitchens, as opposed to splitting it up that way. And he had all of his numbers up on the board, because we did this as part of our real estate group, went and toured it, and his payout on that 600 and some odd $1,000 property all in was 6.5 years or something. And then it was gravy train.
Nice.
So
Yeah. Just spewing out money then. That's great.
yeah, spewing out money, because Derby week was like 15,000 for 5 days or something.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
just crazy. So I get the allure, but I have learned a lot from the people actually doing it, because my first thought was, if you're on the beach, or maybe if you're in California, but in Louisville, Kentucky, I mean, we've got this handful of giant events. Who the heck's going to rent the 5 bedroom Airbnb? I just could not wrap my brain around it.
Right. Right.
So let me ask you this. Do you have an opinion on having a larger short-term rental, or do you stick with more bread and butter, what the masses want? What's your feeling on that?
Well, my focus is, for my lifestyle, because you can make a lot of money both ways or in any one of these categories. But my focus is just 30 days and longer because of the regulations.
Mm-hmm.
Because Sacramento doesn't allow different things. And in fact, if you're not doing an Airbnb inside of your own primary residence, you have even more stricter
Mm-hmm.
categories. So people don't think about going 30 days and longer. They don't know about how things have changed because of cloud computing, laptops,
Mm-hmm.
teleconferencing like we're doing now.
Yes.
People are working longer. They're traveling while they're working, and people are staying longer. In fact, the majority of the stays, 36% of the travel in the U.S. are stays over a month.
Oh, how 36%?
36%.
Wow.
And because of that, that gives me plenty of opportunities in that category, and with very little competition because no one really has their eye on it besides Extended Stay America residents and those types of extended stays. You see more kitchenettes being put in hotels. So for me, I like business travelers like we were talking about before because of the accountability, and I like 30 days and longer, and I can stay filled with a smaller product, a 2-1 or a 3-2, or
Okay.
even a 1-1. I can stay filled that way and make the income that I want in that category. So,
Okay.
so that's for me. I like those long stays. My typical stay is 4 months.
Okay. I was going to ask you that. So your typical stay is 4 months.
Right.
So in terms of gross income, what's the bump on that compared to if you rented it like a normal rental? You just,
Well, I always focus on the net income part of it. So net income, it starts to be, um, I would say, easily 3 times your net with this longer term stay, and it can get for corporate business travelers, it can get up to 10 times your net income, and that's why I strive for corporate travelers with flexing your terms, like flexing the length of stay, kind of like traditional Airbnb, allowing pets. Each one of those adds more income. Is typically 3 to 5 times your net income per month. Um, that's what you should see.
okay. That's a lot of net income.
Yes, a lot
Additional
of
net
net income.
income.
It's all the way up to 10. Like your friend was sharing with you,
Mm-hmm.
these corporations, depending on who they're trying to take care of, if they're CEO or high
Mm-hmm.
level C-suite, you can easily make 10 times. It could even professional athletes with their families, you can easily make 10 times and more.
Mm-hmm. So do you mainly have houses or multifamily units?
So I have a mixture of both.
Okay.
What I did was I took the upstairs units in my eightplex and I turned all those into corporate housing so that um, so all those are extended stays. And then I went and I rented other people's places. So I rented some homes and some units inside. They're all in proximity of the best areas of town,
Mm-hmm.
controlling different key spots. Some of them are homes, some of them are cottages, in-law suites type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And some are houses where I have full construction crews in there. So I do all those. And the reason I did that, so of course I make a net off of those, but I take those incomes and I'm funneling that into purchasing a mixed use commercial building, where I'm kind of converting that into a actual extended stay hotel.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's a nice thing to do.
That's very interesting. Um, let me ask you this. So we all know that if you list these places, like on let's just say VBRO or whatever, one of those places, they take a cut. So how do you market your properties? You know, I'm going to talk about marketing, right? So how do you market your properties? Do you list them somewhere? Do you market them yourselves, or how do you get the word out about what you do?
Well, what's interesting is I like to make Airbnb my backup strategy, Sharon.
Okay. Okay.
I like it to be my safety net because it is the big monster. It is very, very good. You can always get people, especially after you get your profile. But I like it to think of it as it has superhuman strength. So because of that, you can venture off on your own, and you
Mm-hmm.
can make those relationships directly with people. Gift baskets into a office manager at a business goes a long way.
Oh yeah, yeah, it
You just have
does.
to get out from 100 people. Also, developing your relation, if you have every group nearly on Facebook has its own little private Facebook group or Facebook group.
Hmm.
Become known in that, and people start referring you directly. So Facebook Messenger, I get quite a few, and then there's specialty websites for travel healthcare professionals, and Craigslist still works. Craigslist is excellent for construction crews. There's a temp housing and sublets category
Hmm.
that very few people think about, besides people who are traveling or have training programs and they have or construction crews coming in from out of town.
So that would be an entirely different rental than a level of rental than corporate
You got
housing.
it. Yeah, well, it is corporate housing. They're still on prevailing wage and they're in for a project.
Okay,
So
then I guess I'm thinking of like a corporate executive.
right. So there's different, right. So
That would
you're
be
getting it now. You're seeing all the different
yeah.
flavors, and you think about what you currently have, and then you think, well, what's the what opportunities, which categories do I want to work in? Do I think this will work for? And then you can find the best category, highest best use
Hmm.
for your product.
That's a very interesting way to look at it, because that has always been the challenge of people buy and hold investors.
Yeah.
There's no money today, because just when you think you're rolling along, a furnace goes out or the sump pump goes out and the basement floods, and you find out your insurance isn't going to pay for all of it. There's always something.
That's exactly right. And in fact, it's just if they shifted to being a buy and hold, but month to month landlord, which
Hmm.
has been around forever, right?
Hmm.
And it's perfectly legal, and it's not going to it's not going to go away. They're never going to change a regulation to take out month to month rentals.
Hmm. That's
But
very true.
how you fill the place is that's the innovation. If you furnish it and fill it from people from online, then you can, just by doing that, you end up 5xing your income.
Hmm. So then we get into the whole question of, from a woman's point of view, my question is, do they respect your furniture? I have to ask that question.
Yeah. Well, it depends on which group category you get.
Mhm.
If you are dealing with travel nurses, absolutely. And or you put the right furniture in there. Like, you gotta make sure you put. Often travel nurses have small dogs, little cute dogs that not only do they love, but they also are great protection for them.
Mhm.
Know if something's going on. So of course you want to get something that you can put a sofa with a cover on it
Mhm.
that you can quickly dispose is the way to go there. And not such nice furniture, because they really care about the bed and a big TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense, because I know vacation rentals, in a nice vacation rental, they expect certain level of things. It really does depend on the level and
Right.
the type of renter
Right.
you're
And
getting. So I guess that doesn't change.
you can imagine medical students or graduate students really don't care about high-end furniture. They just want fast Wi-Fi
Mm-hmm.
and something that fits in their budget.
A place to crash. Yeah.
That's it. So not over furnishing. Over furnishing can knock you out of the government allowance that they're willing to reimburse their employees, or anyone on a federal contract has that GSA, Government Service Administration
Mm-hmm.
budget. And if you go $1 over that, then you take yourself out of the game as far as charging for rent. So you don't
So
want the furnishings to be too high end.
is there a website that you can go to, like, to find this out?
You can go to gsa.gov and check out the housing per diems for your area, and or you can call your local hotel and ask them what the government rate is.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can do that, because every hotel is playing on that. The GSA is the measuring stick, so
Okay.
every hotel is using that to position themselves. So that'll
That's
quickly tell you what's going on in your area by finding out what your hotels are doing. Yeah. So
But that is a valuable tip, Al. I mean, landlords, they go on Rent-O-Meter and different things to find out what the rents are for the area. But I wasn't aware that there was, like you said, a measuring stick for how
mhm,
much to charge.
mhm.
That's hugely valuable to anyone that's thinking about going down this path.
Right, and you just want to beat their rates by a good 20% take, but you're going to make a lot more than a traditional landlord, and you're going to undercut the local hotels, which they price themselves because they know what they're doing. They
Hmm.
know what works. And if you undercut them, then there's that big margin there. That's all for the taking.
So when you're talking about hotels, you're talking about extended stay and those types, the
Stay.
ones that are designed Residence Inn, or the ones that are designed for longer stays.
If you have one, yes. If you have, say, a Residence Inn,
Hmm.
that well, typical extended stays would cost $22 million, and they do a ton of research. They do all the research that you couldn't do enough research that they've done. So if it's physically there, that means that they've done the research and they know people on average 18 days stays. That's their average
Okay.
for it to physically be there, for them to drop that much money onto it and put 200 rooms there. Okay, that's how many rooms typically extended stays have. So there's your research.
There it is.
And if it's an average of 18, that means there's going to be some 30 days in that average. There's going to be plenty of 30 days and longer stays that they know about. Or otherwise, it wouldn't be an 18-day average.
Right. So do you have how do you price then for, if I wanted to get into this tomorrow, do I price by the day, by the week, by how do I price?
So my focus again is extended stays.
30 days or
Yeah. So because there's if you're doing shorter terms, less than 30, you have to pick up lodging taxes and sales taxes, and you're on the Schedule C, and you do dynamic pricing. I can't give you an answer to that. I stay out of all of that. I stay out of all of that. That's if you pay yourself for your time and your focus, it's just too many moving parts for my lifestyle.
mm-hmm.
That's why I'm a traditional landlord, month to month landlord.
A month. Okay.
Okay. So because of that, all I have to do is undercut. We have maybe 20 extended stay hotels in Sacramento, all with 200 rooms.
Mm-hmm.
All I have to do is undercut them a little bit.
To get the whole month. They just
That's all I have to do.
one for a month. Yeah.
Yeah. Undercut their 1 month stays, and that's all I have to do.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's much more desirable to be in a smaller place than like an extended stay.
Oh, there's I mean, if you're in a hotel for over 10 days, you're just ready to jump out the window.
Jump out the window. Yeah.
You're always looking for a parking spot. You can't compare that to having a garage door opener
Mm-hmm.
and still at less for and saving your company money, or even pocketing the difference between your housing allowance
Mm-hmm.
and what you're actually paying. It's just no competition whatsoever.
That's really a great point. So yeah, I know that they have housing allowances, so they get that amount of money. So if they can get it cheaper, then they get to put that in their pocket.
It's tax-free housing allowance too.
Wow, pretty cool. Well, this has just been a great show. One more thing I wanted to ask you though is, do you think there's any more liability with short-term rentals than with, say, 12-month leases?
Oh, absolutely. If you're doing less than 30 days, then you're essentially doing a business activity, and you need additional insurance for that.
Mm-hmm.
Your insurance company is going to not know what to do with that. That's not your landlord policy. If you're
Okay.
doing 30 days and longer, then you're a traditional landlord. Then it's regular. It's just business as usual for your insurance company.
So you just need your regular insurance and probably an umbrella policy like most people have.
Just regular month. You're just a regular month to month landlord. It's been around since baby Jesus in the In the manger, they had an inn. They had an inn and they had an innkeeper
Mm-hmm.
way back then. So it's the same business model. It was a furnished rental way back then.
Mm-hmm. Only it was a bale of hay and a couple more things.
Well, they were out there because there was no vacancy. They were doing so much business.
True.
So it's
True.
been around for a long time. It's been around for a long time.
So before we wrap this up, Al, do you have any final advice for investors that might want to go down this path? How do they start? If whether they're single family investors or multifamily
Uh-huh.
investors, how do they pivot and go down this path?
Well, every multifamily investor should have at least one short-term rental just to diversify. There's just like no excuse not to have one short-term furnished rental in their portfolio. Even if you have a duplex, one half of it should be a furnished rental. So you can do that. Um, I have a training program, and
I was going to ask you about that. You do have a training
I do
program.
have a training program, a coaching and training program that teach people how to do this extended stays version with the emphasis on business travelers, because that's actually what I do, and allows people to get out of that always being a cash-strapped landlord that
Mhm.
has a lot of equity. It gets you out of that issue because you can have the cash flow and the equity, which I think that's what we all signed up for, right, Sharon?
Right. Yeah, right. Not the never-ending bills and gee, I
Yeah.
can't meet my mortgage payment this month because I had so many bills.
Yes. Or for me, it was my wife was asking me, why can't we go on vacation? We have all these rentals.
There is that.
And I'm like, well, I'm working our W-2 job is needed to supplement
Mhm.
the
Yeah. So your course is called Extended Stay Landlord.
extendedstaylandlord.com.
Okay. Well, that I can tell you, folks, this is probably something you're going to want to add to your toolbox because if you are a buy and hold landlord, you should have learned something today that will rock your world and change the way you do business. So how can people get in touch with you, Al?
So they can always email me at al@leadinglandlord.com. That's my main site,
Mm-hmm.
al@leadinglandlord.com. And plus, I'm all over Facebook and everywhere. You can find Al Williamson that way.
He is everywhere. I can
I
vouch for
am
that.
I'm almost as good as marketer as you, Sharon. I'm trying.
I'm trying to stay ahead of you, though. I'm
Yeah,
trying.
you are. You are.
So, well, thanks again, Al, for coming on the show. This was a great show, and I love it when you can give people actionable tips. And the goal with this show is I'm always interested to hear people's stories, but I want people to walk away with something they can implement, some to say, I learned something from this show, and you sure delivered on that one, Al.
Well, it's a pleasure being here. You're still my hero.
Well, thank you. Folks, I think that's it for today, and I'll be back next week, same time, same place. Bye for now.